I was in that competition at that arena, I was like, get me out of here.
Really?
And afterwards, it's so sad because I've spent the whole year trying to get to this thing, and I get there and I'm like, I just want it to be over. And so I really regretted those feelings. And so my goal going into like this season was like, no fear, no regrets. I want to leave this competition like being like, I wouldn't have done anything differently. And I definitely came away with that.
Ended up at Harvard studying neuroscience and becoming a thrower, and then you end up getting to the Olympics. So it's like the ultimate success story on its own, let alone carrying this massive load of diabetes for the ride. When you finally get to Paris and you're wearing the uniform, you're walking the opening ceremony, what was that feeling like?
I was happy. It's different to your normal competition. You've got this massive stadium, massive cage, all these people, it's loud. Like I'd never competed in anything like that. And you just hear the stadium. It was insane.
You might not remember exactly, but what was your blood glucose like on the day of the competition?
I don't remember what my bloods were.
Really?
No.
If in the back of your mind is diabetes is going to hold me back from being my best, that's not a productive thought. What are some common myths and misconceptions that you hear or that people say to you when they find out that you have type 1 diabetes?
I feel like, especially growing up, I was like, oh, you don't look like you have diabetes.
Oh, I get that one.
Well,
what does it look
diabetes
like?
doesn't have a look,
right?
You know?
If you weren't a professional hammer thrower and you had to be a professional athlete in any other sport, what would you choose?
Oh, I feel like
I'm going to call you up to the circle for your last big throw. It's your chance to read out your diabetes letter.
All right, here we go. Dear Diabetes.
My guest today is Steph Ratcliffe. Steph is a professional athlete who has been living with type 1 diabetes since she was 6 years old. What Steph's been able to achieve, both athletically and academically, is incredibly inspiring. At only 23 years old, she holds a degree in neuroscience from Harvard University and reached the pinnacle of her sport when she represented Australia in the 2024 Paris Olympics for hammer throwing. In this episode, we cover what it was like growing up with type 1 diabetes as a kid, her move to America to pursue her career as a student athlete, how she manages to juggle her diabetes, training and studying all at once. We talk about the road to the Olympics and what it felt like to represent her country and the broader diabetes community on the world's biggest stage. We also discuss body image in sports and how Steph deals with it. And as always, she closes the show with a letter to her diabetes. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the support of Medtronic. I'm incredibly grateful, not just for their technology, but for the people behind it. Medtronic puts patients first. They truly care, and I feel it. So to my Medtronic family, thank you. Without further delay, here is your daily dose of Steph Ratcliffe. Steph Ratcliffe. Welcome. Oh, I was going to say welcome to Australia, but you are Australian. But you're obviously based in the US. How long have you been back in Oz?
Like a week and a half now. So,
okay.
And then I head back to the States 2nd of Jan. So
you're here for Christmas, family?
Yeah, birthday.
Your birthday?
My birthday, yes.
Turning 24?
Yes, I am getting old.
Getting old. What does that make me, 1,000? We were just saying before we hit record that you're using a pump and you're on a CGM, but your metrics are in milligrams per deciliter. So when you're reading your blood glucose, so you don't even really understand those numbers. You're just kind of looking at the graph. Explain to me what you mean by that.
Yeah, a little bit. So yeah, obviously I have like a US pump at the moment. And I mean, it's great. I get the updates quicker than Australia gets them. But yeah, it's in like hundreds. I don't know what, sometimes half the time I don't even know what it is. I have to do that little divide by 18 kind of conversion. I basically know 180 is 10. And then if I'm like 300, okay, then we're way off the charts. So
your math's capped out at 180. I love it.
But nah, it's all right. The graph's nice, got those nice colors. So
what pump are you using?
T-Slim X2.
And you've been on that for a few years, or you sort of used to that?
Yeah, I've been on it over 5 years now, but I've been on a pump since I was 7. Less than 12 months after I was diagnosed, I switched to the pump.
Okay.
So was never using injections for that long. I mean, I love the pump. I know not everyone does. But it's worked super well for me. So
yeah, I mean, that's the sort of beauty of the diabetes space, is the choice for the consumer. We'll call it a consumer, or the person living with diabetes, is there, especially these days, there's so many options, and Some people just want to like flip-flop between them and try this, try that. So it is pretty cool. I was just admiring your G7. I'm currently on the G6 and I was very jealous of that, but hopefully soon it'll be available on the NDSS. I've sat down with so many people on this show who are elite athletes who have reached the pinnacle of their sport, but you are the first Olympian. So I'm so excited to pick your brain, learn from you. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things that everyone's going to learn from this. But let's go back to the beginning. So take me back to the diabetes diagnosis. I know it's a long time ago now for you. You were 6 years old. What do you remember, if anything, about being diagnosed at age 6?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember everything, but I think over time, like my parents had told me things, so I've kind of patched together it a bit more. I remember going to the GP and actually no, I guess before the GP, let's go back. I remember I was just drinking heaps. It would like those like 2-liter bottles of juices. I was just fill them up with water and just drink out of that. I know I lost a lot of weight. Like my school photos that year, it was around the time of my diagnosis, quite pale. And my grandma was a nurse, luckily, so she kind of, I think, hinted at potentially diabetes. Went to the GP, and they said, yeah, go to emergency. So I went there with my family. It was very scary. I was absolutely petrified of needles. I think my mom's told me this. I don't actually remember this part, but they had to hold me down for my first injection.
Really?
So I think that was quite scary for my parents as well, like realizing this isn't just today, like this is every day moving forward now. Like I think that would have been very intimidating. And I remember I hated any sweet things, any lollies. So, and I was a kid. Of course, like if someone tells you to do something, you're not always gonna listen, but like I had to. You know, you don't have a choice. Like you have to eat this, or like something bad's gonna happen. So the only thing I would eat was sour worms. So we had to make sure there was always sour worms.
You mean when it comes to treating hypos? Like,
yeah.
I was going to say for a 6-year-old to be turning down candy is like very surprising.
Yeah.
Especially when you get diagnosed with diabetes, lollies and candy becomes part of the condition. Like we're managing our lows by eating it. Yep. So you're saying you didn't like candy,
nope,
but you were told you had to eat it when you were low.
Yes.
And your choice was sour worms.
Yes, and that was the only thing I would eat. Like I didn't eat chocolate. I didn't eat any other, like I just didn't like lollies at all.
Wow.
Or chocolate.
Which is a great thing if you don't have type 1 diabetes, but
it becomes a bit problematic.
Right,
when you're a 6-year-old and like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah. So do you speak to your parents about how they felt at the time? Because obviously as a 6-year-old, you probably don't have the EQ or the emotional intelligence to really deal with it and even understand what's going on. But I imagine for your parents, it was extremely difficult. As for any parents, I know my parents found it extremely difficult and I was diagnosed when I was 21. What was it like for your parents? Did they talk about that?
I feel like I haven't really had explicit conversations about that, but I've definitely picked up over time. I think that obviously I was so young, you don't really know what's happening. You don't know kind of like the long-term consequences of diabetes. I think I was definitely sheltered from that by them. But like kind of over time, I've kind of realized what an extra stress and responsibility that was on them, especially like overnight. They'd wake up multiple times to test my bloods overnight. And I guess that fear for them is like, what if I don't wake up?
Right.
You know, like, of course, that's always played on the back of their minds. I mean, I've been, asleep, so it didn't really worry me.
Right. And that's a real fear. Like people don't understand that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you still deal with that today personally, but I can tell you from my perspective, I actually think about that quite a lot. Even though we've got the tech now that protects us, I imagine in the first year you were on needles and finger pricks.
Yes.
So you didn't have a CGM that was alerting, alarming. So your parents were acting as the CGM.
Exactly.
Waking you up, pricking your finger, or maybe they even pricked your finger while you were sleeping. I know.
Yeah, they did.
Right.
They did.
So you probably didn't even wake up for that. You were just straight through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that must be so hard for a parent to do that. And then what would happen if you were, say, low in the night? Would they try?
They'd have to wake me up and give me lollies, and 6-year-old me who hated lollies, love those 3 a.m. wake ups.
Oh, the worst.
But nah. So, but I think not only just the day-to-day things, it was like, well, I mean, also like school. I know I was in primary, I was in like grade 1.
Yep.
So then it became not just the responsibility of my parents, but the responsibility of my teachers. So then, and then there's like, my parents had to trust those teachers, to look after their child, especially as a newly diagnosed, when like they hadn't fully grasped how everything worked, and then putting that responsibility on someone else was obviously a lot.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's something I hadn't thought of, like sort of surrendering the control to somebody else who you really don't know or even trust, but you're just saying, okay, this is the condition. If they go low, do this. If they're high, do this. Like it is quite scary. And again, the technology's changed so much. Back then, without any data stored on your phone that your parents could probably access today if they really wanted to, right? Yeah. Back then it was, you feel like you're in the dark. Like if you're not using a CGM or a pump, you really don't know what's going on. Yeah. So talk about school for a second. What was it like being around other kids, but you're living with diabetes, and I imagine probably no one else was at school because it's quite rare. What was it like just socially and in the classroom and in the playground? Do you remember those days and navigating that space?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I have a lot of those memories. I think for me, it was quite difficult. I didn't like to be different. I didn't like people knowing, so I'd always try to hide my pump. When the time came in later in high school, hide my CGM. Used to refuse to wear my CGM because I didn't want people to see it. And my parents were like, no, you have to put it on. Like, it's good. My views towards that have changed a lot since then. I think growing up as a girl as well, there's a lot of social pressures, there's social media, a lot of stereotypes that you're just trying to fit in, be like everyone else. So having this thing where like you are different, there's nothing you can do and you have to accept that. Like you have to accept that to survive. Realist, like that's end of the day, that's what it is. So yeah, I definitely had some struggles growing up, but I think everyone goes through that. I think that being diagnosed so young, like I didn't know any different, you know, so that I think that makes it a lot easier. Whether if you're diagnosed a bit later and you know what life is like without diabetes, I think that can be like way more of a struggle because it's like this thing has come in and it's done all these things to me, but for me, like that's always been a part of me. Right. You know, that's just part of who I am.
Right. That's exactly what you're saying there is what I went through, the identity crisis as a 22-year-old. Yeah. It's like I thought I knew who I was, and then you've got to sort of re-identify with the new person. But as a kid, and some kids are diagnosed at like 12 months, they would know no different. Yeah. So it certainly would be a different kind of life. Do you remember this rough time period where you went from hiding your diabetes to being more proud to wear it and talk about it? I don't think it was a specific point in time. I think that it came with accepting diabetes, accepting that I'm going to have this forever. And I think that, I've talked about this before with other people, but I think it came when I accepted myself as a person. I think everyone goes through those kind of phases of life. You're trying to find yourself, you're trying to fit in, and that just comes to a point where you have to accept you are who you are and be proud to be who you are. And I think my acceptance of diabetes came with that. I think also another big part of it was seeing the impact that I could have on other people. When you kind of see the way people are taking your story, taking the things that you're saying and like it's positively impacting them. And it's like, well, if I can positively impact one other person, well then it's worth it, you know, like right. It doesn't matter what people think. Right, but it's hard to do that.
It is.
When you're not seeing yourself as a positive role model. Like if you're ashamed of it or you're hiding it or you feel, you know, it's like this clunky thing that's got like devices attached to us and we've got a pump with a tube. Like it just feels a little clunky at times. But I couldn't agree more. Like just helping one person. If you asked anyone with diabetes, would you want to help just one person live a better life? Everyone's going to say yes, right? So it's allowing yourself to be that person because when you are that person, like I remember when I was diagnosed early on, I was just looking for a role model. Like I just wanted to see an athlete doing well, a sports person, somebody healthy and thriving. As soon as I saw that person, it completely changed the way that I viewed my diabetes. And then you realize that one day you can be that person to someone, and obviously you've become that. Something I'm really interested in is like, what age did you first figure out that you were going to be a track and field sort of person, athlete, lover of it? Like when did you first get a hammer throw? Like what's the process? What's the path to becoming a hammer thrower?
Yeah, well, I started little athletics when I was 5 years old. So athletics has been a massive part of my life basically since then. Like my dad just took me to the track one day, the local track down the road, and I was just watching these kids do all these events. I'm like, I want to do this. But like at the time I think I was forced. I was too young. I had to wait a year to be able to do it. I was like, no, I don't want to wait. Anyway, so I did that. I did other sports along the way at the same time, but little athletics was something that I always did all the way through.
Right.
For those who don't know little athletics, you do all the events. So run, jump, throw, every event, cycle through them each week.
Right. It's like a brilliant way to screen the younger population to see who are potentially going to become the athletes, who's talented and what you're talented in. Because unless you try everything, you don't know. Like some people might be an amazing 800-meter runner. Someone else might be a hurdler and they don't even know it. Like you've got to try them to figure it out.
And I think like even more than that is that like athletics, all the different events, they're the basis of every sport. So even if you don't end up going into athletics specifically, like if you can run, jump and throw, like that's the foundation of every other sport there is. So I think it's a really, really good sport to get involved in, whether you end up pursuing it or not.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, basically back to the story. I actually used to be a hurdler until probably my favorite event till I was about 11 or 12.
Oh, wow.
And discus and shot put came along with that. And then it wasn't until I was 13 I picked up a hammer for the first time. I was training for the throws at the time.
I was going to say, so hammer's not part of the little athletics.
No.
But discus and stuff would be?
So discus, shot put and javelin is.
Okay.
So I was doing those three, training with a throws coach.
Yep.
And then saw someone throw a hammer one day at training. I'm like, oh, I want to try that. Like I do all the other throws, why not try that one? And yeah, for a while I did kind of focused on like hammer, throw, shot put and discus until probably I moved over to college when I was 18. And then I kind of dropped off discus, shot put, just focused on the hammer throw.
Right.
So.
And do you remember the first time you picked up the hammer and what it felt like?
Honestly, no.
Really?
I remember watching the person who inspired me to try hammer throw, but my actual first throw, I don't really remember. I think it's hard. So when you start, you do it very differently to like what I do now.
Yeah, I imagine as a kid, you're not spinning in circles and...
No, you just start standing there, swinging around your head and letting it go. So it's a bit different to kind of the movement I do now.
Right.
But yeah.
Because it's a funny anecdote, but I remember when I was in school and I was also like, at the athletics carnival, I would sign up for like every race. I'd do the 100, the 200 or some longer distance. And then we were doing like PE class and we were learning all the throws. So like we'd line up, a row of kids and we'd have a go at discus, javelin and shot put. And I remember standing, this is actually so dangerous now that I think about it. Picture this, like 50 kids standing in a line, all next to each other. So a long row. Everyone's got a discus.
Oh gosh.
I know, this PE teacher, mate, I can't remember who you are, but this was a very bad idea. And at the same time, it was a 3, 2, 1 go. Everyone throws a discus, hopefully out in front. But I released a little late and it went down the row and it thankfully didn't hit anyone. But I remember throwing that discus going, okay, that's not for me. Next, so then we do the javelin. And then I did the shot put. And interestingly, I was a really skinny little kid. But I threw the shot put so far, the guy was like, you might be able to actually do this as a sport. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm a runner. Like, I don't do this. Anyway, I ended up going to like state for shot put.
Oh, no
It was
way.
bizarre. And I showed up on the day and I was the tiniest little kid. I'm talking like I should not have been there. And all these big guys who honestly looked like I could have been their son. And they were like 15 years old. But I had this ability to throw a shot put, which I wouldn't have known about if not for that PE class. Yeah. Did you know straight away when you swung that hammer that you were like, okay, I'm pretty good at this? Or was it something that you had to really develop and hone in?
I mean, I feel like I figured it out pretty quickly. Like I said, that like at the start you throw it a bit differently. So it takes a little bit of time to kind of like progress to kind of a technique that you can actually kind of see what you're capable of. But I guess over those first few years, I definitely could tell that that's what I wanted to do. I think that's why I honed in on that one over like the shot put and discus.
Right.
It took me like a long time to even in my age group to even win a national championships. Like I didn't win it, I think, till like under 20s, and I started when I was 13. So it's not like I, started throwing and became the best like straight away. It definitely took a lot of time to get there. But I think just like sticking with it and just like making your own journey, not comparing yourself to other people, was definitely like super important.
So what is the road to, obviously you got to the pinnacle, the Olympics, but like step me through how you get to the Olympics. Like what are all the competitions that no one sees or hears about, but you're there slaving away sort of, week after week or year after year.
Yeah.
How do you get to the Olympics? What's the path?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I said, it's consistency. Like you don't need to be a hero any day. Like if you be a hero like a day, it's just like, you're going to get exhausted. Like you just have to slowly pick away at it like every single day. Show up and just get 1% better. I mean, I did a lot of training, just growing up through high school, always down at the track in the gym and doing like the competitions in Australia. We have like nationals every year. That's a big one. But I think what really shaped like my path was going to college in America. So I made the decision to move across the world by myself when I was 18 to kind of find a situation that was going to work academically and athletically. I mean, here in Australia, like obviously there's university, but it doesn't really pair so well with the athletic side of things. Where in college, it's like a package deal.
Yep.
There's a coach for the university, you've got all the facilities, great experience. So yeah, I chose that.
And you chose that based on something that you decided will be best for you, your career and academically best for your studying. Was it something that your parents influenced you or other people, or you just saw the target and you sort of went for it?
I mean, I guess like going to college is a lot more popular now for Australian athletes. But back when I was there, I feel like I was probably one of the first few years that really like started getting into that kind of pathway.
Yeah.
I went to there was like a information session at one like training day in at Albert Park, Lakeside Stadium. And there was like a recruiting company like saying like, we can get you into a college in America and you can get a scholarship, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, Dad and I decided we're going to try do it ourselves. We're going to email the coaches and do all the research rather than going through a company.
Right.
And end of the day, we printed out a list of like the top 150, whatever it was, academic universities in America that were D1, Division 1. Sorry, it's probably a bit too much US college lingo.
This is good. I'm sure a lot of American listeners
who aren't aware of it. And basically just started at the top and just started emailing coaches down the list. And
had you proven yourself as an athlete at that point, or were you still like when the coach gets your email and they go, okay, Steph Ratcliffe, do they know who Steph Ratcliffe is at this point?
Yeah.
Or are you sort of like still trying to define yourself in the sport?
I feel like if you're in the US, they would have known you, but like because you're in a different country, I think that you kind of have to do more of the reaching out. I think nowadays like college coaches are looking internationally.
Okay.
But at the time, I think like I definitely had to be the one kind of pursuing those connections.
Right.
And I mean, I'm thankful I did.
And
so it worked.
Absolutely nailed it, because you ended up was it Harvard?
Yes.
Ended up at Harvard studying neuroscience.
Yep.
And becoming a thrower, and then you end up getting to the Olympics. So it's like the ultimate success story on its own, let alone carrying this massive load of diabetes for the ride.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to hear about how your diabetes is managed around training and competition. And I say them separately because I imagine they're very, very different. Even just being a recreational athlete, quote unquote, myself, I know that the competition setting compared to the training ground is completely different in terms of how your physiology works and the adrenaline response and all of that kind of stuff. So talk me through like a typical training block, let's say. Are you training all year round? Is there sort of a in-season, off-season? How does that all work? Yeah,
so there's definitely in-season, off-season. I think it's been a bit hard with injuries. Things have been patched together a bit. But usually I'd be training all year round. The kind of training differs a little bit in season versus out of season, but end of the day, as a thrower, they're pretty similar. I guess.
Well, what is the training? Like, give me like a day in the life of Steph during off season, or sort of like what it looks like over a week. Yeah. So usually I would probably throw 4 to 5 times a week. So that's probably the core of my training. Right. Is hammer throw. Actually, sport specific. Just throwing the hammer. Right. And it depends on what time of the year it is, what injuries you have, to how many throws you do. You change the implement I throw with is 4 kilos, but I would train throwing anything from like a 3 kilo to a 5 kilo usually. There's different like weights between there just for training purposes, to work on different technical elements, different strengths, speed. So that would vary over time. And then it's the gym, like lifting. And what does that look like? Because that's my world, and I'm obsessed with that world. I don't know the circle that well. So what does the gym's strength and conditioning program look like? And do you have a coach that's guiding you through it? Yeah, so at the moment I have a coach in America, so he will set my throwing sessions and my lifting sessions. Lifting for me, or when I'm healthy, would be 3 times a week. A lot of
Olympic kind of lifting. So your snatches, cleans, back squats. As a hammer thrower, I don't need too much arms, so I kind of stay away from that. It's more legs, core, and really power.
I think it's probably counterintuitive to people listening. People think it's like this, you muscle it with your arms.
100%.
But it's probably the complete opposite. It's that, as you say, like you're connected to the ground with your legs and your core is the bridge between your legs and where the hammer is in your hand. So if that's not strong, your base, you need that foundational strength in that base sort of chain.
For sure.
So, I mean, it makes so much sense that you're doing the Olympic stuff because it's, so much hips and core.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you had to learn those moves later on when you went to college, or had you played around with those because they're very technical lifts?
For sure. I did a little bit growing up before I went over, probably in the later high school years. Never went too heavy. I know the Americans are often like lift heavy, 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 and they're like the throwing world over there. I'm not a strength thrower. Like I'm not super strong at all compared to my competitors. So I'm definitely probably more of a technical speed kind of thrower.
Interesting. So you think that some people sort of muscle their throw more than others, and other people can use technique a bit better?
For sure.
Really?
For sure.
Okay.
And I mean, especially like this year, I was injured before the Olympics, so I had 4 months off, no strength, lost like so much muscle, and then
4 months no lifting.
4 months of like nothing.
What was the injury?
I had a stress fracture in my back.
From throwing?
Overuse kind of injury.
Like a vertebrae was?
Yeah, my L5.
L5, wow.
So I was diagnosed late December. So I had 3 months off everything, 4 months off throwing. And then
what was it like dealing with that news, knowing the Olympics was around the corner?
It was stressful.
Yeah.
I was like,
did you think you were going to make it there, or?
I really didn't know. I hope so. My parents had bought tickets and flights the week before I found out I had a stress fracture. I'm like, guys, just found this out. I basically had that 3 months to get into some sort of shape and try qualify.
Yeah.
It was very stressful.
Yeah, I can only imagine, because you probably work literally your whole life for that opportunity to make it to the Olympics, and then an injury comes out of nowhere. Wow, that sounds kind of scary, but you made it, so that's the good news.
But back to the thing is that like the strength that I had this year was very minimal. I did like barely any lifting, and what I did was like very light. So I think that, hopefully in the future I can build up that strength, and then that can give me even more distance.
Interesting. So at the Olympics, like how was that experience? Like honestly, getting that call up, you've made it to, you obviously qualify through another competition, I imagine. Like you have to.
The world ranking system.
Okay, so how does that work?
It's very confusing.
Yeah.
But basically, end of the day, top 32 people in the world make it to the Olympics. And so you have to be on that list. Okay,
and who creates that ranking? Like let's say there's someone in Australia, someone in America, and you're winning your local competitions. Is it just purely based on that distance that you throw? So
you can either throw an automatic qualifier. So if you hit a certain distance, then you automatically qualify.
Right.
The World Athletics tries to make it so half the people qualify through that kind of standard.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next kind of slots until you get to 32 are based off an average of the top 5 competitions.
Okay.
But then there's bonus points depending on the level of competition. So, like your nationals get more points,
Right.
There's just certain competitions have more weight to them.
So you either have to be consistently good or one-off amazing, and you're basically got a good chance of making that top 32.
Yeah. So
what was your path?
So Olympics, I kind of knew I wasn't going to get the automatic qualifier. So I competed in the World Championships the year before. And that's exactly the same qualification system as Olympics. It's just obviously just athletics, not all sports. And I got the automatic qualifier for that one. So my plan was to hit the automatic qualifier for Olympics, be done with it. So you don't have to stress waiting for all the rankings to come through.
Right.
Because they're changing all the time, especially those last few spots.
What's that distance that you had to get?
It was 74 meters.
What's your PB?
73.63. So it was 73.60 for the World Championships, and they upped it to 74 meters for the automatic kind of standard. But you have to get it within that 12 months.
Okay.
Anyway, so I knew I wasn't really going to hit that with just like, I just needed to take it slow, make sure I didn't re-injure myself. I went through the rankings, basically.
Got you. So you consistently were good enough to be well ranked, and then you make it.
Yeah.
let's go back a step quickly back to your training. So we were talking about strength conditioning, those kind of lifts. Give me some, I know it's not about this, but give me some numbers. Like what sort of numbers, come on, everyone wants to know how much can you squat? What's your best power clean? Those kinds of things. Or are you just lightweight technique?
Honestly, like I haven't done a full squat in years.
Because of your back?
Yeah. And my knees, like I'm quite tall, have long legs, those kind of movements, like it's kind of an unnecessary risk of injury.
Right.
I'm there to throw, not to lift, basically. It's so I always modify my squats, like just do box squats. So it's just not quite as deep.
Yep.
I love like trap bar deadlifts, those kind of things.
Nice.
As well. And then like the cleans, like I'm terrible, honestly.
Well, it's hard, yeah.
There's like my PBs are like not great at all. And I honestly haven't maxed out in a few years now.
Well, that's probably very sensible. And the most important PB is your throw, which is Olympic level. So that's all that matters. So around training, let's say you're doing a session in the gym and it's based around those power moves.
Yeah.
What time of day will that be? Do you eat a meal before it? If so, when's the last meal you have? How much insulin is on board? Like I want to know your diabetes strategy around training.
Yeah. Honestly, in college, you don't really have much time. So everything is just like squeezed into this day. So typically I'll have classes like all morning to early afternoon. I mean, when I'm in full training, usually I have like half an hour to get from class, go have lunch, get out there. So it's very, very quick turnaround. I obviously try, all the time you're trying to manage your levels, make sure you stay good. And I'll go and have lunch straight before. I don't really have many options. I'm kind of like just, my cards are kind of dealt for me in this. So have lunch, give myself some insulin for whatever I'm eating. That meal changes we get lunch given to us. So like there's a few options. Usually like a rice bowl with some meat or like a sandwich, some yogurt or a smoothie. And I feel like I kind of go on the fly a bit. So like I judge what my blood sugar levels are. I have a CGM now. It makes such a difference. Yeah. So I can kind of see where I'm heading. So like if I can tell my bloods are dropping, I'll give myself less insulin for what I'm eating. If I can see I'm going up, I'll give myself a little bit more. And depending on the session as well, if it's a conditioning session where I'm going to be running, well then I'll give myself less because I know I'm going to drop. Or if I'm just throwing, usually like that's not too, like it's more of a strength-based thing, not like an aerobic thing.
Yep.
So I don't need to worry too much about that.
Right. And do you find that you can predict very comfortably based on what training session you're doing, what your blood glucose response will be? Or is it still a bit unpredictable? Because people think that when you live with diabetes, every day is the same, and it is absolutely not. Like it's incredible how different your body can respond to, the exact same training session or meal.
Yeah.
Do you find that trainings have a general trend in what you just mentioned? So if there's a bit more aerobics, you might sort of drop down.
Yeah.
If it's more anaerobic, you might stay steady or even go up. Have you noticed patterns?
Not really. I feel like what I'm doing is constantly changing, and often I don't even know what I'm going to do before I get to training. Like my coach will tell me. And some days like things are paired with like I'll throw and do conditioning, or I just do conditioning, or I do strength and throwing. Like there's different combinations, and there's so many different combinations that like it's kind of hard to sense those patterns.
Yeah.
I know sometimes like there was these periods of time where I'd have throwing sessions, and every time I'd go, I think at the time I was throwing in the mornings, it was like out of semester times, and I just drop. No matter what I did, I would just I go and do training and my bloods would just drop, and I tried to give myself less insulin for breakfast, and same thing happened. And then eventually I'd find out like I eat the same thing for breakfast every day, so it's quite easy. I'd find out, okay, I need to give myself exactly this much insulin to make sure I don't drop throughout the workout. Like I know I'm going to be a little bit high at the start, but I'm going to come down.
Interesting.
So I feel like I'm a very like play by ear kind of thing, wing it. Don't know if that's the best way to do it, probably not.
No, I think it's part of the learning is you have to be willing to go through this experiment. You're going to make tons of mistakes. Everyone will. But that's interesting about the morning training being, causing a drop for you, because like in the literature, if you look at resistance training in the morning versus the afternoon, or AM versus PM, AM training actually leads to higher blood glucose responses than PM training. This is obviously gym training. This is different to throwing. So it's interesting that your personal anecdote is the complete opposite. And again, that's just for lack of a better word, the sort of beauty of diabetes is everyone's is different.
Yeah.
And you've got to figure out like how to manage your own diabetes.
Yeah.
And what about during an actual competition? Is that a little bit tricky? What's that like?
Yeah, competition time, definitely very interesting times. Yeah. It's definitely taken me a while to figure out a kind of routine, but like I learnt the hard way through, I remember a specific competition that's definitely taught me a lot of the routine I go through now. But I feel like for me, this is what kind of part of it looks like. I make sure I change my site the day before and like during the day. So I have the day to make sure like my site's working, no malfunctions. I make sure that's all good. Often I compete in the morning, and I find that really tricky because, you know, I have the first meal of the day spike pretty bad sometimes. So I have to make sure I get over that meal spike, because then once I get to the competition, there's adrenaline.
Right.
Adrenaline, oh my gosh.
Yeah, here comes another spike basically.
Yeah. And I don't know what happens, but like it's like my body doesn't react to insulin from that adrenaline spike. And it's just like, I remember this one time I was giving myself so much insulin, I just wasn't coming down. And it was just like, oh, like what do I do? Like I have to go compete, and I feel my head just feels so off. I have to go spin in circles when my head's feeling like not great. Like it's definitely not a good place to be in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is one of the physiological roles of adrenaline is to make you temporarily sort of resistant to insulin, because the body's trying to mobilize glucose. It's trying to put glucose in the bloodstream so that you can use it.
Yeah.
The problem is when you have diabetes is we can't predict what's going to happen, and we don't have the counter hormones to regulate blood glucose. So, so as you say, like let's say you have the breakfast and you spike and you haven't come down yet, and then you have the adrenaline spike, you could be flying double arrows up, and you're about to go, you know, maybe throw the most important throw of your life.
Yep.
So mentally and psychologically, and because you have a background in neuroscience, I'm interested to hear, have you correlated like high blood glucose with performance? Like as in, are those things, can you perform well with a high blood glucose? Or do you think that impairs performance? Because every elite athlete I've spoken to so far, the common theme has been they all compete with high blood glucose. None of them have, from you know the sample size that I've been talking to on the podcast, none of them compete with blood glucose in the typical normal range, the normal physiological range. They all purposely are a bit high to create that like safety net so that you don't go low, because that's probably worse, let's be honest. Sure. But none of them have had a problem, you know, performing at the highest level with a little bit of a high blood glucose. What's your personal experience been with that?
I mean, I don't think I really sat down and actually correlated the numbers before. I think definitely mentally it plays a part, you know, like you think, especially when you're feeling it, you know, I feel like if you're a little bit high, like just before, it's okay, but it's when like you're high for a long period of time. So my competitions can be up to an hour long, and in that hour, I only usually take 6 throws.
Right.
So there's so much sitting down, and like I've said this before, it might seem like a great thing because, you know, like you have time to kind of get everything under control. But I'm just sitting there micromanaging everything, every little move. Like, am I going up? Am I going down? Like, so I think like for me, the biggest thing is like doing everything I can to like get in that good range. Like I'm the same. I like to have my bloods like a little bit high, probably around like 8 to 10 rather than, you know, 5, just to, again, give you that safety net.
Yeah.
But I think like it comes to a point where you just have to accept that, okay, I'm going to go high. Like I know I'm going to go high. It happens every single time. So like there's nothing I can do. You know, like I can do what I can, but after that, like you just have to accept and go with it. And I think it's when you start thinking about it that it really kind of has those negative consequences.
Right. If in the back of your mind is diabetes is going to hold me back from being my best, that's not a productive thought.
No.
So when you have your breakfast, do you try time it so that it's like a few hours before you compete?
For sure. Yeah. So I always try to make sure I'm up at least 3 hours before I eat 3 hours before I compete. So like at least I can get rid of that like morning first meal spike if it's going to spike.
What do you eat for breakfast on comp days?
I like oatmeal porridge. Yeah.
Okay. So like it's cooked or like overnight soaked oats? So
cooked,
like a porridge.
Yogurt, berries.
Beautiful.
Usually milk.
And so you find that particular meal tends to spike you all the time or just on comp days?
I feel like all the time I'm going to get some sort of spike.
Okay. But does it come back down to normal?
It comes back down to normal.
Okay, so but when you say spike, let's kind of define that, because I think some people, especially these days, because everyone wears a CGM, people who don't have diabetes call everything a spike. Are you talking about a spike that actually does go outside of the normal range? Because I've seen people online who don't have diabetes and their blood glucose will go up like 1 millimole and they'll call it a spike. Like, what do you mean when you say a spike?
I would really say around like up to 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're hoping that 2 hours after you've eaten your meal, your blood glucose is back towards where you started.
Yeah.
Then you start the competition, say, 3 hours after breakfast or whatever it is. When does that next adrenaline spike start to happen? Is it before you even get to the ground? Is it, whilst you're putting on your shoes? Like, when does that happen?
I feel like it's not always the same.
Right.
Yeah. It's not a formula into when my adrenaline spike starts. I think it definitely probably depends on like the level of competition I'm at. If it's like NCAA national championships, well then I think I'm probably going to start a lot earlier in the morning, because I'm just like, you can feel those nerves as soon as you wake up.
Right.
For smaller competitions, like, it's not too bad. Like, the adrenaline doesn't play too much of a part anymore.
And do you try to manage adrenaline with like mindfulness tips or tricks, or do you just accept it and try to ride the wave a little bit?
I pretty much just kind of accepted it. I mean, for hammer throw specifically, you want to be as relaxed as possible. So I know some people think that you need to like get all G'd up, like throw as far as you can, but honestly, that's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
So like for hammer, you want to be as long as your arms to be as long as possible, and as soon as you tense up, like it shortens the radius, and it doesn't go as far.
The lever length is shorter. Yeah.
Exactly, physics.
That makes sense.
So you want to be as relaxed as possible. So basically, I mean, if something was going to help the adrenaline, I guess thinking like that would.
Yeah, that's
so
interesting.
I guess I probably already do that for my sport.
Right. I've heard sprinting coaches say the exact same thing about sprinting.
Yeah.
People think you need to like run as stiff and fast as you can, but they're actually like run loose.
Yes.
Is kind of what they sometimes say. You've probably heard coaches tell you that.
And I think like the best throws feel effortless. The ones that you think that I'm like, oh, I put so much into that, like it doesn't really go anywhere.
Yeah.
The ones that you just slot into place without you even trying, like you're just super long, relaxed, and it just like you get that really good flow.
Yeah. I kind of like that metaphor for life a little bit.
Yeah.
Like sometimes if you sort of like overthink it or try too hard at something, it doesn't go as well. You need to sometimes surrender and sort of like just be a part of the process, and the outcome might be amazing.
Yeah.
Let's rewind a second. So you go through the qualifying, you make the top 32. What was it like finding out that you made it to the Olympics? Like, were you with your parents? Is it a phone call? Like, people want to know, like, how does that even work? Do you get an email, like, congratulations? Like, how does that work?
So I got a phone call.
Yeah.
I was in my house on call. I was in America at the time when I found out. Honestly, for me, it was a relief. I was just like, it was a very stressful month before that. I was kind of traveling a lot, trying to qualify. I think I competed like 6 times in 3 weeks just to get those marks on the board, because I had such a late kind of entry into the season. Like my first real kind of comp was in that last month of the qualifying period. And it was the NCAA championships, and I've fouled out. I've got 3 no throws. And that was one of the ones with like the bonus points that was really going to help my ranking. And when I found out of that, I was just like, oh no, like kind of like it really felt like that Olympics was kind of in real jeopardy at that time, because I'm like, I have only a couple of competitions left, and like that means I have to throw big at these to qualify. But it's really hard when it's a ranking system. It's like, it sometimes doesn't matter what you do. If someone else does better, well, then it doesn't matter. Or if they're in a higher level of competition and they get those bonus points, like it's just like, oh, it's really hard. It's really tricky. So I was quite stressed, because I was always looking at the rankings, saying, okay, if this person throws this in this competition, it's going to go here, there. Like it's a lot of like mental math. I probably thought too much about it, to be honest. But yeah, like I said, it was just like a real relief when I got that call, because I was right on the cusp. I was right around that, like that last few people, and I knew I was going to be, just because of the season. But yeah, relief.
And then when you finally, it was Paris, right? When you finally get to Paris and you're wearing the uniform, you're walking the opening ceremony. What was that feeling like?
I mean, I was happy to be there.
Yeah.
I think I was fortunate enough to have the World Championships the year before to kind of experience a major championships in that like it's different to your normal competition. You've got this massive stadium, massive cage, all these people, it's loud. Like I'd never competed in anything like that. And to have an experience kind of like that before going into Paris was so lucky just to get my head around it. Because I know that World Championships, I freaked out. I was in that competition at that arena. I was like, get me out of here.
Really?
And afterwards, it's so sad because I've spent the whole year trying to get to this thing, and I get there and I'm like, I just want it to be over. And so I really regretted those feelings. And so my goal going into like this season was like, no fear, no regrets. I want to leave this competition like being like, I wouldn't have done anything differently. And I definitely came away with that. I remember like walking around the outside of the stadium, like underneath the stands in Paris, like to go before we went out to our event on the field. And you just hear the stadium. It was insane. Like it was so loud and so many people. And I just had this massive smile on my face. I'm like, I get to compete out there, you know, like I'm just going to go and have fun. Like, you know, sometimes you think that you had to put extra pressure on yourself or like, no, you have to do this. I'm like, no, actually, like the more relaxed I stay, the more fun I have, the further it's going to go. So I think just tapping into that mindset was really, really helpful, rather than kind of going with the whole nerves kind of route.
Wow. So. I got chills. I just picture you walking out there, just, you know, that first moment where you sort of see how many people are there and how you feel how loud it is. And, you know, for you, what a blessing to have had that somewhat negative experience of tremendous nerves in a different competition so that you could enjoy the biggest stage in the world. What was your, I mean, you might not remember exactly, but what was your blood glucose like on the day of the competition? How many comp days was it? Was it just one?
It was just one day.
So they do the whole heats, finals, podiums on one day?
For hammer throw, there's like a qualification thing. So there's 32 people. They split it into two kind of lots of 16, and then the top 12 come back for the final.
Okay.
So I was in the first group, so I was like sitting in the top 12, and then the second group came and I got knocked out. I came 15th. So unfortunately I didn't get to come back.
Right.
But I honestly, I don't remember what my bloods were.
Really?
No.
Well, at least you weren't micromanaging them, like that you could sort of enjoy the experience.
I feel like I'm always looking at them like throughout, you know, I have my bananas, I have my Powerade, I have my Sour Patch Kids as my go-to hypo food at the moment. So I definitely do everything I can but like I look at it, do it, and then don't look at it for 10 minutes.
Okay.
You know, like there's no point like it's going to take 10, 15 minutes to actually see any changes. So I'm like, just do what I do. And like, it's just become part of the routine now rather than like always like the first thing I think about.
Right. And did you have a sort of the strategy you'd used in other comps in terms of the meal you ate before, trying to limit how much insulin was on board? And were you trying to keep that consistent at least? Or was it, like, what time was the comp? Was it different to what you were used to?
It was a morning competition. So I think I definitely had to get up a bit early.
Right. And how was that sleep the night before? I can imagine you barely slept.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like sleep before a comp day is never great. You're always on a bit of a high, and even just like making sure you've got everything ready for the next day, especially when it's early. It's just like in the Olympic Village, we had roommates, so it's like trying to be quiet so they could stay asleep, and it's just like, it's a lot. But yeah, I feel like I kind of just, like I said, I do things on the fly. So I'm like, I don't really remember it.
Right.
But I'm just do the best that I can every day, and like, that's it is what it is. Like,
that's all you can do.
Like I say, I accept it.
Yeah.
So I think those competition days, obviously I've done my best to try and create kind of a routine that works, and I'm sure like obviously in time, like that's gonna adapt and change. But for now, like I'm happy with what I have in place.
Yeah.
It works.
It clearly works. And what about your actual performance? Were you happy with how you performed? How did it feel?
Yeah, so it was an interesting competition. So I don't know if people know, but we only have three. We have 3 attempts, and then the best one is what they take in that qualification round. And my first 2 throws, I threw it straight into the net. So I was at the Olympic Games. I had my family, my 2 best friends in the crowd, and I had 1 throw to get it in, like just to get a mark on the board. And I was just like, that was a bit nerve-wracking. Yeah. I mean, I can't say I wasn't prepared for that. Like my training, I I mean, I'd only been throwing for like 3 months before the Olympics. So like training wasn't very consistent. I definitely tried to like improve that very quickly. So it wasn't the ideal prep. And I knew my training wasn't perfect before going in. So it's like, I was prepared for that. Like I knew there was a chance this was going to happen. But I feel like I just wanted to have fun.
And how did the third throw go? Did you make it?
Yes, we made it. I think everyone was like relieved, my family. Like, every time I talk to someone about the Olympics now, they're like, oh, you had us stressed to that third throw. Yeah, how do you think I felt out there? But nah, it worked out in the end.
And the distance you threw, was it something that was competitive for you?
It was 70 meters, so it was near the best I'd thrown that season. It wasn't too far. I think it was about a meter off the final, so it was like this far off Olympic final. So unfortunately, just missed out on that. But
as you say, your training leading up to it was not ideal.
Yeah.
So do you look forward to the next Olympics where you can get like a really nice clean run towards it?
I'm so excited for the next, because that third throw, it's like I threw that 70 meters off a throw where I was just trying to get it in. I'm like, imagine if I could actually have gone in there and thrown and given it my all. Imagine how far it could go.
Just explain to people who don't know what this sport is.
Yeah.
How you can hit the net. Like explain how you're spinning around and what the implement is.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess hammer throw is, I feel like a lot of people know what a shot put is.
Yes.
So it's just like a little metal heavy ball. It's 4 kilos. It's on about a meter long wire and then a handle. I basically spin it over my head twice, spin around in a circle 4 times, and then let it go through this little gap in the net. So I have this netting cage like surrounding me and there's like a little, I don't even know how many degree opening.
Yeah, it's
less
small.
than 90 degree opening out of a 360 degree radius.
Right.
And yeah, so you can hit the net if you just let it go like tiny bit too early, tiny bit too late, it's in the net.
Yeah.
And then especially when you're trying to throw in a high pressure environment, like your technique changes, you tense up. So like those little kind of tiny things make a huge difference.
Right.
And yeah, so there's typically quite a lot of like no throws.
A lot of moving parts. Yeah. So when you're spinning around, you said if you want to try feel loose.
Yep.
On the third throw, did you feel loose or was it like a tense moment where you were like, okay, this is it?
Yeah.
Or did it all just did the pressure just disappear in that moment? Because like, hey, I may as well enjoy it. It's my last throw.
I feel like neither of those options.
Yeah.
I honestly think I was less tense than the first 2 throws. I think the first 2 throws I was definitely super tense and I was just like, relax. And that third throw I relaxed enough to get it out there and get like a good throw out there, but I definitely like could have been more relaxed. I think in those situations, you're never going to be fully relaxed. It's like the highest competition in the world. So it's like, you're definitely going to be a little tense.
For sure.
And I mean, I've also been told it takes a few major championships to actually be able to perform in those environments.
Right.
You can't replicate it. There's nothing you can do to replicate it. So, I mean, now I've got 2 majors under my belt. Hopefully the next one be a little bit better.
I've no doubt.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
And so when you were in the village, what was it like being around other, amazing athletes or even like people that you admired or had like followed or seen on TV for years? Yeah. What was it like actually being there with them? Was there any names that stand out?
I mean, I think it was super cool just getting close to the Australian athletic team. I think there's a lot of people that I looked up to my whole life, and there's people who I, met in meet and greets and got their autographs when I was younger growing up, and then here I am competing on the same team as them, and they're just having breakfast with them and talking to them in casual conversations and checking in on each other. Like, it's such a cool experience to have like progressed through that. And I think it helped me, like, just everyone was so friendly and so nice, and it really it made you feel a lot more comfortable in that environment. Like, sometimes you think, oh, like, I'm with all these people, they're so good, like, who am I, kind of thing, like, because I'm quite new to the scene. But yeah, it was amazing just seeing how they kind of take you under your wing and just have that whole experience together.
And what was it like being someone, living with type 1 diabetes in the village, with people asking you about like, hey, what's that device on your arm? What is diabetes? Did you find yourself having to explain to people what diabetes is a lot?
Honestly, not too many people asked.
Really?
I don't know.
I guess being an athlete, they probably keep to themselves. And
I feel like people don't really realize. I feel like I do things quite like effortlessly. Like, you know, you just quickly put something in on your pump and like everything's on your phone these days when you check your blood sugar. So it's not like I'm out there pricking my finger every 6, 8, 10 times a day. Like, so I feel like it kind of flies under the radar a bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you certainly made diabetes news with images of you, you know, mid-throw with a CGM on and those kinds of things. So that would have been cool. I'm sure since then, how was your like advocacy role or, you know, mentor, role model position change since being on that stage as someone with diabetes?
Yeah, I feel like in the last year, basically, I've really kind of wanted to get more involved in the diabetes community and so like trying to make an effort like on social media, like show pictures with the CGM. Like I don't have to have pictures where you, like I used to probably like, or I wouldn't post anything if you could see the CGM in the picture. And I'm like, that's so silly. You know, it's part of who I am. And like, this is when I'm younger, teenage kind of. And it's just like, I think posting with that is so important so other people can see like it's normal, you know, like it doesn't matter. It's a part of us. It's just, and I think also my friends say this too. They're like, I don't even notice you wear that, you know? And I think for us, it seems like such a big visible thing when really it isn't. A lot of people probably will just, they're not even going to pay attention to it like we do. I think that goes for everyone, diabetic or not. We pick apart our image and to a point that like no one else is going to pick it apart like that.
Yeah.
So recognizing that I think definitely helped.
And I think these days, as we mentioned before, a CGM is no longer a device just for people with diabetes. I feel like everyone almost is intrigued by wearing it for themselves for a self-experiment.
Yeah.
Speaking of image, this is a question that you don't have to answer if you don't want to. From what I've seen online and in comment sections and on social media, there are some stigmas related to body image and throwing sports in particular. Yeah. Right. So like when you go on Instagram during the Olympics, maybe my feed was different to a lot of other people, but I can tell you from a lot of people that I've spoken to, and I did a poll on Instagram, during the Olympics, it's just like the track athletes get a lot of limelight in terms of the images and the videos and these viral shares and these viral moments. But in the throwing world, people can be really nasty about body image. Have you ever seen that? Is that something that exists in the throwing world around body image for men and women? Is that a conversation that's happening? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's definitely a lot of stereotypes around that. I think that, I mean, it's hard, the structure of athletics in that, like, I think track is always going to get the limelight, no matter what, body image or not. I think the field events, it's quite hard to get that media exposure, sponsorships, that kind of things. It's frustrating sometimes. It's like, well, we're doing the same things, but like we don't get that. I feel like that you just have to kind of accept that, like this is the sport that we're in, this is the event that we're in. I think it can be quite hard mentally as an athlete though. You're on the same team as people who are tiny and like you can see their muscles and everything, and then like the throwing like that kind of body isn't helpful. In fact, it's very unhelpful, you know, like you need to have the muscles and
mass moves mass.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I get told by my coach, I'm like, oh, you need to put on weight, you know, you need to put on weight to throw further, otherwise you're going to get injured and all this stuff. And it's
how do you feel about that?
It's hard sometimes, especially when you first
receiving that news from a coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, with my injury, I lost a lot of weight. And then it's like, I know a lot of that was muscle. And when I put on muscle, I put back on the weight. But it's hard as a woman hearing that. And I'm sure, I mean, I'm not a man, but I'm sure that there's those kind of feelings around there, around that kind of thing too. It's really hard. But at the end of the day, you have to, I mean, I think of, I'm like, well, I'm here to throw as far as I can. Our bodies are like, if one thing athletics has taught me is that we can manipulate our bodies so easily. So if I need to put on weight now, like it's easy to like reconfigure your body at a later date. Like it's not like this is me forever. You know, I'm not locked into this body. like we can change it.
Yeah.
And I think just recognizing that freedom is really helpful.
It's a great mindset.
And I think just appreciating our body for what it does for us rather than how it looks.
Yeah.
Because end of the day, like, why do you want it to look this way? And I think just kind of dialing down on that, if it's for anyone else, it doesn't matter. Like I think that if someone's not going to accept you because of how you look, I'm like, well, no offense, but I don't really want to be friends with you anyway. Like that's not good for me. And I'm like, I can do without that. So yeah, I think just really recognizing your own values is super helpful.
I think that's amazing maturity. Like you're 23 years old, to have a lesson like that young is quite amazing. Where it also gets quite difficult is weight gain or weight loss with diabetes can vastly influence insulin sensitivity, insulin requirements, blood glucose management. So like even if you do decide, you know what, I'm just going to wear the body that I need to be the best athlete, it's probably going to influence how you manage your diabetes as well. So if you've got that extra thing to think about, it's like this big equation. It's hard enough some people find it hard to gain weight, to lose weight. To also manage diabetes around that must be pretty tricky. Have you noticed as your body changes, going up or down on the scale, and your body composition changes, muscle going up or down or body fat going up or down, that your diabetes is harder to sort of manage?
I think that in those times when my weight changes is usually when my training also changes. So then the weight goes down is when I stop training. Weight goes up is when I start training. So I think those kind of changes in my blood sugars and insulin sensitivity and all that, like also come from, like it's hard to tell, is it from the weight changes or is it from the different activities, exercise I'm doing? I usually find it's quite hard to control my diabetes when I'm not exercising as much. I think like when I get out of that normal routine, like things kind of take a shape of their own kind of thing, not as predictable. So I think that's definitely a bit trickier.
Let's talk about exercise. That's one of my obviously 4 pillars. What is your exercise like, and what's your relationship like with exercise outside of the sort of training you have to do to be an athlete? Do you love to move your body? Do you like going to the gym? Like if you weren't an athlete, would you still exercise, and what's your favorite way to exercise?
Yeah. I honestly think if I wasn't an athlete, I would exercise more than I am now.
Wow.
I think that, I mean, it took me a long time to like recognize this. I've gone through the last like several years, like different phases, and that like, I wanted to do as much exercise as I could to lose weight, and looking back now, it's like, obviously I can see that wasn't the right mindset. I shouldn't have had that, but I mean, hindsight's a great thing. But yeah, I think for my sport, honestly, one of the hardest things is recognizing it's not just what you do, but it's what you don't do. So I have this training all written up for me. And if I'm going and doing extra training, well, that's not accounted for. And then that's changing my body composition, probably not in the way that I want it to, or that my coach wants it to. It's putting extra strain on my body, extra risk of injury, fatigue. Like if I'm wasting my energy on things that aren't actually going to help my sport, that's just wasted energy, wasted time. I think recovery is so important, especially as a power athlete. I know endurance athletes are a different story, but when I'm out there every day trying to put maximal effort into my throwing and into my lifting, like I need to be as less fatigued as I can, as recovered as possible. So if I'm out there doing all these other things, like doing extra runs or anything else, like I'm just going to be more tired. The quality of my sessions are just going to be lower, and ultimately I'm not going to be as good of an athlete in my desired sport.
Right. Let's talk about some of those recovery things that you do. Obviously, I'm sure you have access to amazing facilities being an athlete who has a scholarship at an amazing university. And what are the main tools that you use to recover and be ready to perform?
Yeah. I honestly think the biggest things are sleep.
Yes.
I think everyone looks past the easiest things. Right. Easiest things for me, sleep, food, water.
Yeah.
Like honestly, and just like the basic movements, limiting your other everyday movements. I don't, like I said, different sports are different, but for me, that's like part of it. Like just being off my legs as much as I can. Obviously, I want to walk around and move, but like just not excessively.
You're not going on 10K runs just for fun or just to clear your mind. Like you're going to use other things to do that.
And the thing is, I'd love to go for a run. I mean, body's a bit injured now, so I can't exactly do that. But even if I wasn't, of course, I'd love to do that. But I'm like, that's not going to be good for my training. So you just have to recognize that, like, you can't do everything that you want.
So you've got sort of the opposite willpower problem that most people have. You're having to implement the willpower to do less so that you can be better at your sport, whilst other people are trying to leverage willpower to do more so they can lose weight. It's like literally flipped on its head. It's an amazing thing how when you are an athlete, as you say, the things that you have to choose not to do are sometimes the things, the things that you really love or want to do can be very hard.
Just even talking to some of my friends, I see it. I'm like, they're just doing all these extra things and they're thinking it's great, but it's like...
Non-athletes we're talking about?
No, athletes.
Oh, athletes, okay.
I think as athletes, we have this mindset that the more we do, the better we're going to get. But that's just not true. And I think I'm very fortunate to have learned that lesson, but it's very hard to grasp.
Yeah.
Very hard to grasp as an athlete. It's like, you're telling me like, so if I don't do this extra session, I'm actually going to be better off. Like,
right.
It just seems so counterintuitive.
You think more is better, but really better is better.
Yeah.
Like that is just, how do we optimize and you got to probably think, you're not just thinking about like the little mesocycle of 4 to 6 weeks, you're thinking macro cycle. Like how does the year look? How does the next 2-3 years look until I get to the Olympics again? So how do you periodize your 4-year plan? Is that something that you break up into little blocks? Are you looking ahead at the next Olympics already, or are you just sort of day by day at the moment?
I honestly think for me, I break it down by year. I think we're lucky that in every year we have a major championships. So everything is kind of to perform at that major championships. I think when you look too far ahead, it's like things change. Like, okay, I have these goals. Like, I know what my major championships is going to be every year. I know it's Worlds next year, it's Com Games, and then it's Worlds again, and then it's Olympics. Like I know what competition I'm like set for myself each year. But then within that year, then I break it down to like, okay, what competitions do I want to do to prepare myself best for that? Okay. And then I plan my training around that.
Right.
So it's kind of, I like the year cycles.
Yep. I think if you're trying to plan 4 years in advance, you're zooming out too much. You're not dialed into what you need to accomplish.
Yeah, I think it's important to zoom out to a point, but the site after that, it kind of, I think it's not as useful.
Right, that's sort of your guide. You can see the direction you're heading, and that's the trajectory. But to do the right thing today, I need to focus on X, Y, Z.
Exactly.
And set a plan.
Exactly.
Are there weight division? This could be the most ridiculous question. How does it work with weight classes in throwing sports?
There is none.
There is none. Okay. I guess that's where that body image can arise from. Because if you do need to be a bigger body to throw the shot put and you're versing someone who is smaller, chances are the more mass you have, the more... To an extent, of course, technique plays a role in strength and all those things. But if mass is part of it and there's no weight divisions, then you can have a lineup of people who have very different shapes and sizes. So if you weren't competing, what would your exercise routine look like? Or what would you want to do for you? Like for your mental health, for your physical health?
I mean, I love lifting. I love lifting. So I would definitely be doing a lot of lifting stuff, like yoga, Pilates.
Would you consider yoga and Pilates as potentially those modalities that might increase fatigue, systemic fatigue, or reduce it?
I think that's in moderation.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I used to love doing yoga. I love doing like 5 minutes of yoga in the mornings. It's like a kind of like a stretch. So I feel like yoga is definitely kind of like the recovery kind of stuff. I think Pilates probably gets a little bit. It
can be hard.
Yeah. And I think I actually haven't really done much Pilates, but I think it's quite similar to kind of the rehab kind of stuff I do, just in like an hour-long block.
Yes.
So I think that definitely can be helpful. So, I mean, ideally, once I'm healthy again, I'd incorporate that maybe once a week on a weekend as part of my training.
Cool.
I think doing like the things that I want to do, like I definitely can incorporate it. You just have to be smart about it.
Right.
Just don't overdo it. And if you're going to add that in, just make sure you're not doubling up on things. It's like, as a whole, it's not too much.
Okay. And do you track, like, do you use a Whoop or a Garmin or anything that you track metrics like heart rate variability or sleep quality?
No.
You just go by feel?
I go by feel.
I get that sense about you. You sort of like to just kind of wing it and feel
exactly.
it out.
I'm very go with the flow.
Yeah.
I think I need to be. I get very like regimented, fixated on things. So I feel like going with the flow is good for me.
Right.
Yeah,
I think if you don't know how to use, I wear a Whoop, but like a device like a Whoop, where you're getting all this data around like your sleep quality and quantity, your baseline metrics, like your resting heart rate in the morning, your HRV, all these things. If you don't know how to use that data and you're like emotionally attached to it, it can be a nightmare. Like sometimes I wake up knowing I slept like shit and my whip's like, hey mate, you really slept badly last night, you know? Like,
okay,
I know,
thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, I can feel it.
Yeah.
But I think just being detached emotionally from that data is quite important.
Yeah.
Do your coaches try to tell you to use that stuff, or do they like you being you? You go by feel?
No, I think I kind of take shit. I feel like generally I'm pretty good just as it is. So I think that if like tracking it more intensely was going to help me, of course I would do it. But I feel like I'm pretty good at just like, my sleep is important. As long as I'm trying to get 9 hours of sleep, you know, I just have my schedule.
9 hours, as I'm eating, that's a dream.
Yeah, I don't always get that, but I think aiming for that is good.
Yeah.
At least you get over 8.
Yeah.
But 9 hours is good.
Yeah.
And same with like eating. I think generally I eat pretty well, and like I used to like track more my eating like more detailedly.
Yeah.
But I've kind of just found that kind of came with negativity too.
Right.
So I'm like, if I just push that aside, I'm like, okay, I'm in a really good space right now. It's just like I kind of eat very similar things every day. I love my routines. I love my patterns.
So take me through a day of eating. I'm interested to hear this.
Well, basically every day, I have porridge with berries and chia seeds and walnuts and yogurt.
Beautiful.
I think honestly, the biggest thing I'm trying to do is eat as much protein as possible. That's kind of the only thing I'm trying to do.
Do you have a target, like a daily target based on grams or?
No. I mean, I'm sure I probably should. And I have a dietitian I work with, and I've given her like what I eat. She's like, oh, you're looking good.
Yep.
I just keep trying to eat more protein basically.
Okay.
So yeah, I have breakfast, usually have a protein shake as a snack. And then some fruit, and then I have my lunch. It's provided for me by the athletics in college, so kind of don't have too many options. So usually, like I think I said earlier, it's like a kind of a bowl, chicken, rice, add some lettuce, veggies.
Nice.
Smoothie.
So very whole food, very balanced.
Yeah.
You're not too extreme either end of low carb, high carb.
No.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so just a bit of everything.
Yeah. That's
basically
great. I feel like diabetes is, I've said this so many times, but it really is on its own a full-time job. Like it takes so much thought, decision-making. You know, when we're eating a meal, like you say, you don't like to track your macros or you're tracking what's in it, but when you live with diabetes, you kind of have to a certain extent, at least for carbohydrates, if you want to manage well. Do you track carbs or you?
Honestly, I think that like growing up with diabetes, like I've had to track my carbs every single meal I've eaten since I was 6.
Exactly.
So I'm like, yeah, I say I don't track carbs, but like I know how much carbs is in everything. So it's like, I think I naturally track it in my head anyway. So like I know I should have about this much carbs for breakfast, this much carbs as a snack, lunch. Like I feel like that's already so ingrained in me that like I don't have to like formally track it.
Yes. So you can eye off a meal and you'll kind of you can know ballpark that there's say 30 to 40 grams of carbs in a certain meal.
Exactly.
Right, but you're not tracking meticulously.
No, I'm not. And I think because I have such a steady routine is that like, and I've spoken to my nutritionist dietitian, like it's like she says I'm good. I just keep doing kind of what I do and I don't have to stress about that. It just takes something kind of off my plate that I have to kind of meticulously manage.
And I feel like your plate is jam-packed because long days at university.
Yeah.
Like how do you do this full-time job in diabetes and be a full-time student and athlete? Like is this mentally, does it feel like a lot you're carrying?
It definitely can. I know when I was at Harvard, it got a lot, like a lot. The academics there are very rigorous and I was stay at 2, 3, 4 a.m. very, very often and then up for 8 a.m., 9 a.m. classes. So then, classes all morning, training, study, classes, training. It's just like over and over, it gets quite intense.
Yeah.
I think I feel like my routine is a lot more balanced now at my new university.
What's the new
So I'm at University of Georgia.
Okay.
I went there to do some master's programs as a grad student. So I finished my undergrad 4 years at Harvard. Because of COVID, I got extra eligibility as an athlete. So everyone has 4 years of eligibility in the NCAA system. So that's why I'm kind of using my extra stuff at the University of Georgia.
Awesome.
Like I said, it's a lot more balanced. So, and I think that I'm a lot better in knowing what I have to prioritize.
Yep.
You know, I'm prioritizing my health first, whether at Harvard, I probably didn't do so enough. But, you know, sleep is number one. Like I say, like plan out my 9 hours of sleep, and then I have to plan my day around that, you know?
Yeah.
So
everything, yeah, I mean, a good day starts with a good night's sleep, not just for the everyday person, but when you have diabetes, I'm sure you're aware of some of the research on this, but like one sleepless night can worsen insulin resistance in healthy people and people with diabetes. So it's like, if that one sleepless night causes you to be less insulin sensitive the next day, and then your blood glucose is variable and you're on this roller coaster, it makes your sleep worse, and then it's this cycle that you just can't break. So I love that you focus on sleep, because that's one of I've got these 6 S's of daily living. So like the pillars are exercise, nutrition, daily living, and mindfulness. And the daily living pillar is all about the 6 S's, which is sleep, sun, steps, socialize, smile, and stress fitness, right? We've touched on a few of those. We spoke about sleep, how it's important. Sun's, you know, being outdoors, spending time in nature. I'm sure you've, like anyone else, can feel the benefits of, you know, spending time outside. Socializing, how's that like, you know, being at university, you know, campus in America?
I feel like the college kind of scene makes it very easy for socializing. Like, I mean, you're in classes and you sit next to your friends. So you kind of have those people your age around you training. Like, you got the locker rooms where you're eating lunch, socializing. When I get dinner, I always get dinner with friends. So like, I feel like socializing is part of your life over there. I think when I move back to Australia one day, like, it's going to be, I think that's going to have to be a lot more of a conscious effort to socialize.
Yeah.
And that's going to be different. That's going to be probably something different I'm going to have to focus on.
Yeah, because as a student, it's built into being a student.
Exactly, especially as a student athlete, because you've got your team. I live with teammates.
Yeah, cool.
So, you know, like, you've got that kind of social network ingrained into your routine.
Right. And then when you finish, you know, university or school, and you come back to Australia as an adult who's just going to be living amongst the rest of us, you're right. It is, you've got to put the work in. And the reason socialize became one of those like sub pillars is the research around building strong connections with people and longevity is like, it's so strong. It's one of the best predictors of longevity and health is friendships, relationships, community. So yeah, I feel like you obviously have a lot of that now. Do you have a plan for when you come back here? Is it, you know, soon? Did you have to be over back in Georgia? Is it Georgia you said?
Yeah.
For another year, or what's the timeline?
So the degree I'm doing now, I'll finish in May. And then it'll be, might do another year there, might come back. Kind of just planning that out at the moment. So we'll see what happens there.
Cool.
It's a very nice system over there. I've got a great coach, great system. Everything's convenient. So like, obviously that's quite easy, but also like, my family's here.
Right.
This is home still. So
you were born in Melbourne?
Yeah, I'm born in Melbourne, raised in Melbourne, always lived in Melbourne.
Right.
And I mean, it's hard. This is my 6th year away from home. It's a long time. And I think living in college comes like, it sounds all great. Yeah, cool. But also it's like, you kind of feel like you're in between 2 lives. Like, I'm not really here and I'm not really there. It's kind of like your life's kind of a little bit on pause. I mean, I've accepted that because it's best for my athletics career, and I mean, it's worked. But it definitely does come with some consequences. Yeah.
Have you ever experienced diabetes burnout? Is that something that, you know, it's sort of like a term that people throw around, but it can mean different things to different people.
Yeah.
Because you've been living with diabetes for 16 years? No.
Yes.
More, 17, nearly 18?
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced burnout? Is that something that's...
I mean, I definitely probably a bit at Harvard. I mean, I had so much on my plate there. I obviously wasn't getting enough sleep. Academics were super stressful. I mean, a lot of this I was just extra pressure I was putting on myself, probably unnecessarily, but like, it just felt like I had so much going on. And then when diabetes was there too, it was just like, are you serious? Like, I've got enough on my plate. I don't need this too. Like, it just felt like that extra thing that I'm like, okay, this is all just too much.
Right.
And I think my mom definitely helped me with that. It wasn't instant. It wasn't an instant fix, but over time, like, she really encouraged me to put my diabetes first, put your health first. It's more important than any assignment, any training. And I think it took me a while to realize that, because I'm like, I thought if I didn't focus as much on diabetes, like, it'd be easier, but like, no, it's not, because then you feel like crap. You know, you have to get your diabetes right to enable you to be as productive as possible in all other parts of your life. So I think that, I definitely experienced that a bit.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. I I could not agree more with that. That as soon as diabetes is, takes a back seat, you're going to run into downstream problems that you probably couldn't see coming.
Yeah.
Because if you're not at your best health, you can't be the best student, definitely can't be the best athlete. So putting diabetes first is important. But again, juggling all of these things, you're doing so many things. Yeah. Do you have any strategies around the mental health side of living with diabetes, or is it just have your routines in place, stick to the plan, just show up every day?
I mean, I feel like for me, I do have, as much as I go with the flow, I definitely have a lot of planning behind that. I mean, I have a very strong routine, and that I have these things I have to fit in. The health comes first, like I said, and then it's classes, it's training times. And then it's like, then I make lists, I prioritize. And I feel like once I have what I have to do on paper, like it kind of gets out of my head. And that definitely makes it a lot easier mentally. I feel like when you have all these things you have to do circulating in your mind the whole time, it's just like so hard to piece everything together and to have a break from that.
Is that a practice? Like, is that a daily journal? Is that a wake up in the morning and literally physically write out these are the things I need to do to like offload?
I mean, it's definitely changed over time. I used to be more paper. I feel like now I use my phone, like Google Calendar. I put all the things I have scheduled in, and then I have the lists, like the tasks you can put on it. So then I just have like schedule them out on what days I want to do it. Like, don't give myself 10 things to do in one day because I'm realistically not going to be able to finish all that. So I think like a big thing is being realistic in what you can do. Like there's no point setting yourself a million things to do. If you're not going to do it, then you're just going to feel bad about not doing it.
Right.
So just like be realistic with yourself, be kind to yourself. I think that's the biggest thing actually, is being kind to yourself. Like you're human, you have feelings, you can't do everything all the time. So accepting that is really important.
Yeah, I feel like diabetes is a pretty good teacher when it comes to accepting being imperfect, right?
Yes.
It's one of those things where no matter how perfect you want to be, it's just not going to happen. And oftentimes the people who are the biggest perfectionists who get diagnosed are the ones that actually suffer the most mentally and feel that burnout because you're trying to micromanage this condition that's just a storm of variables that feels impossible to manage perfectly. And you're just trying to manage it. I was like that in the beginning. I learned very quickly that I had to let go of that. Did you ever experience something like that?
I think I am very type A. I'm a perfectionist in all parts of my life, basically. Right. And I think I know it sounds like I'm very go with the flow with diabetes, but I think that's come as kind of like a self-preservation kind of mechanism. Because if I was a perfectionist towards my diabetes as well, like I think I would just be stress, like a ball of stress the whole time.
Right.
I think that just taking that away from that part probably makes me better at managing my diabetes.
Right. I think that the metaphor of throw loose applies to diabetes in that way.
Too.
Right. You still have to have the foundations. Obviously, you build a strong body, you understand good technique, when it comes to throwing. Same with diabetes. You set up a foundation for success, but then you just got to throw loose because you're not going to get it perfect.
And I definitely always wasn't like that. I used to be perfectionist through and through, through a lot of parts of my life. But I think now, like I said, it's just that like behind the scenes planning, like planning the skeleton of my life, I guess, whether that's training, school, diabetes. And then once I've got that skeleton, like I've kind of done what I can, then it is just being flexible, adaptable, go with the flow.
Yeah. Love it. It's working for you. Yeah. If you weren't a professional hammer thrower and you had to be a professional athlete in any other sport, what would you choose?
I feel like if it's not actually based on if I'm actually talented enough in that sport to do something like that.
Yeah, go for it. Dream big.
Probably like a board sport, like wakeboarding or snowboarding or surfing.
Yeah, cool. Surfing, that would be awesome.
I would have loved to be a surfer, but definitely not good enough at that.
Yeah, me too. I feel like surfing, as a professional athlete, being a surfer would have to be one of the coolest jobs because you get to travel the world, surf the best waves on the planet with no one out, the wave to yourself. Yeah, that'd be a cool life. That'd be a good life. Maybe you can surf in the Olympics one year. Who knows? Dual athlete.
I think maybe I'll surf on my Sunday mornings.
So what if you weren't a professional athlete at all and you had to have a real job like us lay people? What would you do for work? I know you're on the path of neuroscience.
I'm kind of trying to figure that out at the moment. And like when I come back to Australia, I'll definitely work alongside my athletics career. I feel like I love to be doing things. Like I think that's why I'm still studying. It's like I need, like, just track in my life isn't enough. Like, I want to be fulfilled kind of academically along my career path too.
Right.
I think at the moment I'm probably thinking, I mean, you know, like you'd say what I would be doing, but I'm like, I'm probably also just going to be doing this. Maybe something like a data analyst kind of role. My first master's was in data analytics.
Okay.
So something like that.
It's so funny how I asked you, like, do you collect much data around your, you know, and you're like, no, but I'm a data analyst.
And I'm doing an MBA at the moment. So I think something around that, I would love to one day tie that into neuroscience, whether that's for like a science-based or pharmaceutical kind of company. I would love to use my background there. I've always been a science body, love that. But kind of would like to apply it more to the kind of business side of things. I think that will work better with my athletics as well, especially because I'm looking to compete till I'm 2032. I think that I need to be mindful of like the lifestyle, the job I choose, at least for the next sort of 8 years.
And have you picked that timeline as, how did you get to that timeline of?
Two Olympic Games.
2 Olympics?
Yeah, I mean, it would be 3.
Right. 2
and
more.
Brisbane, 2032 home games.
Amazing.
Would be amazing.
Gold medal, podium. I can see it already. Headline. Steph Ratcliffe, type 1 diabetes, gold medal.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
That'd be a nice bow to tie on the career. What are some common like myths and misconceptions that you hear or that people say to you when they find out that you have type 1 diabetes? What are the most common things you hear?
I feel like, especially growing up, I was like, oh, you don't look like you have diabetes.
Oh,
like,
I get that one.
Well,
what does it look like?
Diabetes doesn't have a look,
right?
You know?
And they mean it as a compliment. This is the thing. When people say these things, like to have a reaction of, you know, getting triggered by it or, you know, it ruffles your feathers, it's not productive for anyone because they don't mean it. People don't know what diabetes is until you get diagnosed. Like we didn't.
Yeah,
I mean, certainly I was an adult and I was already graduated in sports science. I still didn't know anything about type 1 diabetes. Yeah. So it's hard to judge the person who's judging you. I think it's important to maybe use it as an opportunity to educate them
100%.
You know, in the moment. So yeah, when someone says that to you, what do you say back? What would you advise people to say?
I feel like I usually just say like type 1, anyone can get type 1 diabetes. I say that there's a difference between type 1 and type 2, and even type 2 diabetes, like it can come from many things, you know?
Yep.
So I think educating around that is very important.
Yeah.
I think like letting them know is that we don't know why we have it.
Right.
You know, like we can't prevent it. So I think, that's really important. It's like, it wasn't like we didn't choose it.
Yep.
It's not us. It's not because of us.
Right. And it doesn't look a particular way.
No, it doesn't.
And nor does type 2, which again, people don't understand.
Yeah, 100%.
You can be a completely normal, healthy body weight. On the outside, look underweight and have type 2 diabetes. Yes, you can also be overweight with type 2, but it doesn't mean that everyone who's overweight gets type 2 and everyone who's underweight can avoid it. It's just not how our physiology works. It's way more complicated than that.
Exactly.
Any other myths or things that you hear?
I feel like there's a lot of things about like, oh, can you eat this? You know, a lot of, can you eat that? Can you eat this? If it's got sugar in it, if it's got carbs in it, or like you have to watch what you eat. I'm like, I mean, I guess like in a way we do, but I don't know. Maybe it's just because like I don't usually, like even if I wasn't diabetic, I wouldn't eat like sugary things anyway. So I think maybe it's just ingrained in my lifestyle anyway.
Right.
But like end of the day, if we want something, like as long as our bloods are good, and I mean the insulin pump's super easy, you just have to cover for it, and you know it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe if it's got super sugar, like lots of sugar in it, you can't really be bothered dealing with them. Like, no, I'd rather not deal with that spike or anything. But like,
see, that's where I see an upside to living with diabetes is we probably say no to foods that if we didn't have diabetes, we'd probably eat all the time.
Yeah.
Just because they're problematic. Like, are there any problematic foods that you just like can barely eat without having a spike, where you just look at it and you go, that's going to spike me, I'm not going to touch it? Or are you willing to dabble in a bit of everything?
I mean, I feel like I just don't usually eat those kind of foods. I feel like around Christmas and like holidays and birthdays, like you kind of make an exception. But I feel like especially as an athlete, like I don't micromanage it, but I am aware of what I eat.
Right.
So I feel like I don't really have those. I don't have to worry too much about it.
Right.
And if I feel like something, I'm going to eat it.
Sure.
You know, as long as I'm not 15.
Right. And as long as you're not doing it every single day and spiking from it every day.
Exactly. Everything's in moderation and compromise. You know, so.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we have covered a lot of ground. Before we wrap up with my favorite segment, the Dear Diabetes segment, where can people find you or get in contact? What's the best way?
Instagram, I feel like I'm definitely most present on that. So Steph.Ratcliffe.
Steph with a PH?
With a PH. Yep. So yeah, definitely that. Okay. You can find my other modes through that.
Are you on TikTok and all those?
TikTok, still working on that one.
Yeah.
Same with, I was trying to build a bit of a Facebook page too, so you can have a look up on that too.
Okay.
It's coming along for some more just athletic kind of updates.
Yep.
Got my emails linked to my Instagram.
Cool.
On the link tree, so you can contact
and
me.
Your your Instagram, I might be wrong, but I feel like it's taken a little bit of a turn now. A little bit more diabetes content is starting to come out of there. Is that something you're focusing on? Is that intentional?
I'm definitely trying to focus on that a bit more now. So see a bit more of that coming through.
Cool. I look forward to seeing more of that. That's awesome. So Steph, when you say go to a cafe and you order a smoothie, how do you figure out how much insulin to give? Just by looking at it off the menu.
Yeah, I feel like I should probably put a bit more thought into how much.
I'm exposing you, yeah.
Yeah, you're exposing my diabetes flaws.
You're not being judged though. We're just trying to learn, that's all.
No, like I say, I'm very go with the flow.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'll probably think about what's in it.
Yep.
I think especially look out for some of those key things, like if there's like something high in sugar that like might influence the carbs a lot more than what you'd like first think. I think that's very important to kind of take into consideration.
Yep. Do you ask the sort of the staff who work there what's in it, or ask them to eliminate
usually.
certain things?
I don't really eat out that much, to be honest. Like I love cooking for myself, and I've never actually thought about it until right now. It's probably because I always say I like to know what I put in my food, but I've always thought of it more from a health perspective. But for diabetes, it probably makes it super easy as well. I'm a basic eater. I just chicken, rice, veggies, like
a bro.
So
because I asked the guy, I said like, what's in it? What are the ingredients? And then I watched him make it, so I could see exactly how to bolus for it.
Yeah.
Do you pre-bolus and wait 15, 20 minutes? Am I exposing you again here?
Yes, you're exposing me again. Second floor. I should. But no, I don't. I usually just bolus before I eat.
Right.
I don't typically wait.
Okay.
Unless if my bloods are high, of course I will.
Right.
But usually I'm really on the go, and like sometimes I don't really know what I'm going to eat. Like breakfast I do, but like the lunches, I don't know what I'm getting for lunch. Dinner, I don't know what I'm getting for dinner.
Right.
So I just kind of wait till I see.
Okay. And I think that's actually a good sort of point to make, is that if you do go to a restaurant, this is for people listening, it's a good idea to only dose when the meal arrives, because if you pre-bolus thinking it's coming in 15 minutes and it takes 40 minutes, or you don't know what, most of us can look at a meal and sort of eye off the carbs in it.
Yeah.
If you don't see the food in front of you, you're just really taking a guess, which can be a little bit dangerous. Well, I can tell you what's in this because I watched him make it. So there's mixed berries, so frozen berries. There's a banana. That was already like chopped up, I think. So I don't know if you got more of the banana or I did, so we're going to find out. Almond milk, and I asked for no honey. Yours has honey.
Yep.
Don't know if that's a problem or not, but we're about to
no problem.
find out. Okay. So yeah, it's pretty basic. And then I was going to add protein powder, but then I offered you, and you said you've got to be careful with the supplements you take, right? Otherwise.
Yes, for sure.
So are you getting tested year round, or is there what's the protocol?
So I mean, they can rock it up to your door anytime.
Yeah.
But most of them will be after a competition. There's random drug testing. So basically any supplement or medication I take, I have to check the batch number, make sure it's batch tested. I have to report it to like the Athletics Institute to say I'm taking these supplements, these batch codes, just to kind of cover my back. So yeah, it just have to be just another caution you have to take as an athlete.
And is there like a list that they give you of companies that are like green light and then others that are like red light, stay away from?
Yeah, so I mean, firstly, they always just say try use food first. Don't take any supplements that you don't have to take. And then on the boxes, like in the chemist, I usually just get protein from the chemist, and you can look on it and it tells you if it's batch tested. It's just like an informed sport tick. And then there's like an app and website. You can like put in that batch number and make sure it's been batch tested for any like substances.
Okay. So other than protein powder, what other supplements do you take?
Typically I'll take protein powder, creatine are the big supplements, and then just like iron, vitamin D, vitamin C.
Right. So just like those sort of baseline multivitamins just to keep bulletproof the diet in case you...
Exactly. And they change over time depending on what, like when I get a blood test, if my iron's low, I'll take iron. If it's fine, I won't, kind of just like working with my nutritionist on that.
Cool.
So.
Well, hopefully we can get you some sponsors off the back of this, and we'll get you a creatine sponsor, a protein sponsor.
That'd be very nice.
We'll see how we go. So I'm going to give my sort of injection now as a pre-bolus, and I'm actually a little bit high at the moment, so I'm going to have to wait 10 minutes, but I'll sip it a little bit as we go. So to eye this off, I would say, well, actually, let me put it on you. Let me expose you again. How many grams of carbs do you think are in this smoothie?
So you said yogurt?
Yeah, almond milk.
Almond milk, I'd never really had almond milk.
It's pretty low carb.
I was going to say that has less carbs than normal milk, doesn't it?
Unsweetened. It's basically just filtered water and a little bit of almonds.
All right, so yogurt, banana, berries. The honey is something that, I just think twice about.
Yeah.
I'd probably say around 40.
Yeah, I'd probably guess the same. So assuming there's a full banana, which has about 20 grams of carbs, like a medium banana.
Yeah.
I'd say the berries maybe will get you up to another 10. So we're at 30. And then with the honey and yogurt and stuff. Yeah, it would probably be around that. So do you have a ratio that you stick to?
So I'm on a pump. It does it for me.
Okay. So talk us through how that works.
So, I mean, it tells me I am 109. So that's American units doesn't mean much to me. At least the pump kind of figures out the insulin for me based on my blood sugar. So I don't, I can see roughly where I am.
Yeah. So 109 milligrams per deciliter, that's your blood glucose.
That's my blood glucose weight. I'll do the conversion. Right. Divide it by 18 is 6.
Okay, so perfect. So
normal, so that's pretty good. Yeah. And then I'll just put in, I'll say yes that I want it to adjust for my blood sugars and put in 40 grams of carbs. And then it's telling me I'm going to have 2.84 units.
Okay, so that's taking into account how much insulin is already on board, like active insulin, and it's like calculating it as it goes, and then it'll either, if you need a correction in there, it'll add insulin, and if you're, say, a little bit low, it'll just take it off. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so I think it's taken, my insulin to carb ratio is just 10 to 1, I think. So it's taken off a bit.
Like, do you have different ratios?
So in Australia, it always used to change throughout the day. It was very complicated. And I went to the US and my endocrinologist over there changed it just so it's the same throughout the day. Okay. Just to see how that
And did you notice a difference, like with your control?
It's been pretty fine so far. So.
And you're doing like...
I should probably expose another flaw. Sometimes I don't actually put the carbohydrates in it. I just give myself like 3 units, 4 units based on what I'm eating. Especially in the morning. So I know that when I have a morning session, like I think I said earlier, I figured out exactly how much insulin I need to have for that like exercise session.
To mitigate the spike that's going to happen from the exercise.
The spike and then the crash. So I know I need to like put in, like normally I would have 4 units for that. But when I'm training, I need 1.5 units.
Wow, okay.
So I figured out that's exactly what I need.
So
I kind of
that 1.5 units will stop your blood glucose going too high, but it's not too much insulin to the point where you're gonna have a crashing low.
Exactly.
An hour after.
Like I'm gonna go up a little bit, but then at least I'm not gonna come crashing down mid-session. Like it's gonna come down naturally through like what I'm doing.
But when you were at the Olympics, you felt like you were just resistant to insulin, like it just.
Well, when it's adrenaline,
it's different.
It's different. Yeah.
Amazing.
So
it's crazy how the body works. So yeah, I use the InPen, the Medtronic InPen. So it's a smart pen.
Yep.
Did I tell you about? Have I told you about this?
No.
Okay, so all of the doses that I give are Bluetooth to an app. So it's kind of like what you have, but it's just not attached to me. Yep. So it also has a dosing calculator. So if I said, 40 grams of carbs, it will take into account how much insulin's already on board, and it'll say you need X amount of insulin for this, whether it builds in a correction or it takes out. Yep. So it's kind of similar, but it's just, it's a really cool way to collect data for people who are on multiple daily injections.
Yeah.
So I have to actually give a correction here because I'm a bit high at the moment because I had 2 days of like literally zero activity because I drove back from Byron, 9-hour road trip. Then was it yesterday? I've lost the days, but basically yesterday again, I didn't have a chance to train at all. So I've had 2 days of literally sitting down, which is so rare for me. It's probably the 2 days over the whole year that I've sat down like that. And so my blood sugars are super high, which is also just such a good reminder. I'm going to give this injection as I talk, see if I can multitask. It's also such a good reminder of like the importance of routinely exercising for insulin sensitivity.
Yeah.
Like you see the difference when you have a day of kind of doing nothing.
Yes.
Like just how much more insulin you need.
For sure.
So that's why exercise is a pillar, and movement is so important.
Yeah. I feel like it's not just exercise. It's like the routine, the schedule. Because I feel like when you think of exercise, often you think of like scheduled sessions, like a gym session or going for a run. But like even just like say you have a job where you're like standing up and just walking around and stuff, like that's exercise built into that you may not think about. Like I know I used to work at Boost Juice. And I know like during my shifts, like over time, my bloods will go lower.
Right.
Because, just standing, doing things for 5 hours, it plays on that. So obviously those days are different to your other days. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, literally like one of the earliest lessons I learned amongst the thousands that I've learned from living with diabetes was how walking can help control blood glucose.
Yeah.
Like when I was a young 21-year-old, 20-year-old, I didn't care for walking. Like I would never build that in or even see that as exercise. To me, that was just like, you would not even account for that.
Yeah.
That's just what you do. You walk. But now I use it as a tool. So like after a meal, probably after this, I'm going to go for a walk. You know what I mean? To like bring the blood glucose down a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
There's so many interesting tools. You admitted you don't pre-bolus, which is fine. No, zero judgment. Have you noticed a difference when you do though?
The spike's better.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been trying to work on that morning one. I'm definitely a lot better with that because the morning I can do it because I know exactly what I'm going to eat. It's the same food every day. Mm-hmm. So I can pre-bolus for that and I don't have to worry about having given myself too much insulin or too little because I know what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. During the day is when I kind of go on the fly a bit more.
Okay.
But I think that works out because it's really that first morning spike. The first morning spike that's the big one.
That's the hard one, yeah.
That's the big one.
Yeah.
So once you get over that, the rest is like not too bad.
That's very common, by the way. I don't know if you've spoken to a lot of other people with diabetes, but like the mornings are a tricky time because not only is it your first meal of the day, but your hormones are a little different in the morning than they are, say, at midday or in the afternoon. Yeah. So it's like you're not set up for insulin sensitivity. You haven't been moving for 8 hours. Mm-hmm. It can be tricky. But then as you say, later in the day, you're on your feet. Yeah. You may not need a bolus ahead of time.
For sure. And I feel like that's when you're kind of doing things as well. Like you might, especially as an athlete, I might have just finished a session or starting a session and it's like there's other considerations that need to be taken into account. So yeah.
What about hydration? Like we did speak about it a little bit.
Yep.
Are you taking electrolytes? Are you just drinking water? What's the supplements around that?
I just drink water. Okay. I mean, sometimes I'll have some Powerade, like when I'm training in college because it's there, it's easy. Mm-hmm. So that's quite easy to go and get a cup of Powerade. I try to do that, especially on the hot days when you're sweating a lot. But water, I just kind of drink as much as I can, to be honest. It's quite easy in classes. Just sitting there in class, sip it.
Yep.
I love the water bottles with a straw. Like it's so easy to get that water in. I definitely have to be more conscious about drinking water when I'm home, like when I'm not in that classroom setting. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that's definitely played a big part.
Yeah, because hydration and diabetes also are a pair that really can't be broken. Like it's so important.
Yes.
Have you noticed when you're dehydrated or not drinking enough how your blood glucose is different to on days when you're hydrated?
I honestly no, but the reverse.
Okay.
When my bloods are high, I am so thirsty.
Right.
Like that's how I know my bloods are high. I'm like like when I'm thirsty, I'm like, okay, my bloods are high.
Yes.
I don't know. I also feel like when I'm not drinking enough, like I kind of get a headache. I feel a bit off, feel a bit faint. I'm like, okay, actually, go drink water.
Yeah.
So that's something kind of recent. I think since I've been focusing on the hydration in the last few years, I've kind of noticed when I haven't hydrated.
Yeah.
So being a bit more aware of that.
Yeah, it is amazing how the body works. Like
it does.
When your blood glucose is high, it's really telling you to like, okay, I'm thirsty. Let's flush out that glucose, bring on water, dilute the blood, get rid of it.
Yeah.
It's an amazing machine. But that's interesting that you've picked up on that correlation. A lot of people can't feel when they're high.
Yeah.
At least you've got that tell.
No, I feel it and I get like very, I don't know, I get this feeling in my head, like I can feel that I'm high.
Yes.
And that's why I also like, I don't like to be high when I compete because I can feel it as well. I can feel it like not quite as much as I can feel a low, but I can definitely feel it. It makes me feel off. I can't really concentrate as well.
Right. Have you still got hyposensitivity? Like you can feel when you're low?
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's good.
Yeah.
A lot of people lose that after, decades living with diabetes.
No, I definitely feel it. I get the shakes, the sweats.
Right.
I don't know if this happens to you, but like when I'm hypo, food tastes amazing.
Oh,
it's amazing. Like
wild.
I just like, you can taste all the flavors. I'm just like, wow.
Yes.
Like you say, it's amazing what the body, how the body changes.
Yeah. Like treating a low with something that is a food that if you weren't low would kind of be like,
Yeah.
It becomes this like the most tasty and you crave. It's actually hard because you crave so much of it. And
I know you just want to go eat everything in the cupboard.
To like slow down that. Yeah. So you go for what was it? The Sour
Patch Kids. Okay. When I'm on the move.
What else can you do?
I love dates. I usually have dates.
I used to do that too. But do you find it works as a hypo treatment?
I did, but I feel like I've heard something that it's not as good as what you think.
It's quite low GI. So this is because they're so sweet, you feel like it's a ball of sugar.
Yeah.
So I sort of like looked into this a little bit. They're not a high GI food.
Yeah.
So they're good to treat lows if you're not already crashing low. Like if you're trending in that direction and you want to get some carbs on board.
Yep.
But if you're having a dangerous low, I would not reach for the dates. Yeah, they're not fast enough.
Yeah. I feel like if I'm like low to the point that I'm feeling like super low, I'm like, I just have my straight Sour Patch Kids. That's easy.
Right.
But if it's like a less severe low, sometimes I try to just time my meal with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's good or not, but I just have that so I don't actually need to
that's sensible.
have like lollies.
Yeah, because if you then reach for the hypo treatment and then you're going to eat a meal like 5 minutes later, then you're setting yourself up for probably a bit of a roller coaster.
And again, it's also like unnecessary sugar. Like if I can just plan it into my day, so I just keep my meals the same. I like from an athlete kind of health perspective too. I feel like that helps me. So, yeah.
Have you tried some of the sort of extreme diets that you see online? Have you ever experimented with, going extra low carb or keto? Because keto is very popular for diabetes, as we can all understand why, because you completely eliminate carbohydrates, you can manage your blood glucose a bit more easily, according to many people. I've actually had opposite results on that. Yeah, I've had both. I've actually had both ends of the spectrum of results. Yeah. Have you ever experimented or you just...
Not for diabetes, no. I've definitely obviously thought a lot about my food just because of being an athlete. Mm-hmm. But I think that's also kind of gone hand, it works really well for diabetes as well.
Right.
I think just going for those more whole foods and making sure everything's like my macros are all spaced out and everything.
Yeah.
So I feel like...
What was the food like in the village?
Village? People were complaining and I thought it was great. I mean, it's not luxury restaurant, but I mean, I'm also coming from dining halls in college, so it was great for me.
Yeah.
I mean, Australia had their own little section with all your Wheat Bix and Vegemite and Milo and Up and Goes. Like that was amazing, especially like I've been in the US, so I hadn't had any of those like home Australian foods.
Had a Vegemite deficit.
So, I mean, I've actually never had Vegemite.
What? Are you even Australian?
Everyone calls me fake Australian.
You are. I can't believe they gave you a jersey and let you even represent Australia. Not trying Vegemite.
But I think I've had my fair share of Wheat Bix to make up for it.
Okay,
so
that's fair.
It's all right.
Did a lot of the like foreign athletes from other countries try the Aussie foods? And
no, so it was only for Australians.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We even had our own coffee barista. It was amazing. But the actual dining hall food was great. There was so many different options, different cuisines, like different meats, carbs, salad bars.
I heard, from what I saw online, it was a disaster. Everyone was complaining that there was a shortage of food, that there were too many plants. There was this plant-based thing, like...
I don't know what they were talking about.
Okay, that's cool. That's good
I could go in there and I could get my chicken. I also, like I said earlier, I feel like I eat very plain food. So maybe that played a part that like, for me, that was all I needed. Maybe other people wanted more flavors. I'm not really sure, but it worked.
Yeah, you know what I think it was? I think there was a buzz. It was almost like a rage bait around, because it's like carnivore versus plant-based is like a common thing you see online.
Yeah.
The village was apparently very plant-based, not exclusively, but predominantly a lot of healthy fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
And I think athletes who are more meat-heavy had a problem with that.
I think maybe it was that like the meat was kind of separated from the meals.
Okay.
Like it's not, I feel like most of the stuff, like it was just kind of chicken or fish or that, but there was like there was other things as well,
Right,
you just had to pair it yourself.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that was it.
I would have loved it if it was plant-based. I would have been thriving there anyway.
But I feel like also like, I feel like it was good like that because I don't know about other people, but around competition time, I want to eat like the simplest foods.
Right.
You know, I don't want any extra variables. Like,
so you want to be able to separate
exactly
everything.
And choose the sauce that you want to choose.
Right.
You know, like I thought it was great. So
that's good. Have you given your insulin?
Yes.
Okay, we better drink this then because we don't want to both have these crashing lows. Well, I'm going to call you up to the circle for your last big throw. It's your chance to read out your letter to your diabetes letter.
All right.
I've been dying to hear this. One of my favorite parts is like when I send it off to you and I say, okay, you've got homework for the show, dear diabetes, and then I get to hear it on the day. So I'm really excited.
All right, here we go. Dear diabetes, what a journey we've had. Our friendship has gone through many highs and lows, both figuratively and literally. The day you came into my life, you had me scared. I was 6 and I was petrified of needles. I hated lollies and I didn't even know how to look after myself yet, let alone you two. But with the help of those around us, I learned how to keep us both okay. Things were fine between us for a while, but I mean, I didn't know any different. But going through high school, you made me feel different. You made me feel vulnerable and controlled. You made me wear a pump and a CGM, things that other people could see and know I wasn't like them. I still hated needles, and site change day felt like the worst day, which was embarrassing for me too. I was 16, I shouldn't still be scared of needles. But no matter what I told myself, I was. When I was 18 and about to move across the world for college, I knew I had to accept that you were with me forever, that there was no point in resenting you because that was only going to make things harder for the both of us. So I tried accepting you, but acceptance can't be forced, and it came in pieces. It took me nearly another 5 years to fully accept you, to let you in and be a part of not just my life, but my identity. I know it took me 17 years to embrace you like I am now, but I am thankful for all the lessons you have taught me, the person you have allowed me to become, and the opportunity you have given me to help and inspire those around me, even more than I could have without you by my side.
Steph Ratcliffe, well done. Beautiful letter. I feel like there's a lot of common themes in that with all of my other guests. So it really does feel like we're a big family who are all going through the same thing together. Thanks for sitting down with me. That was an awesome conversation and hopefully people enjoyed it and maybe you'll come back for a round 2 one day.
I hope so.
Maybe with a medal around your neck.
Oh, that would be very nice. No, thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Steph as much as I did. As always, I'll see you in the next episode for another dose of inspiration and education.